This betrayal we just experienced is exactly what we've been waiting for. It will set us free. From now on, we'll stop selling products for other brands. We'll design, manufacture, and distribute everything ourselves. These are the words of Phil, the founder of Nike. He said this to his employees on the day their partner betrayed them, when everyone was feeling completely down. And Phil's words of encouragement really worked. They helped the demoralized Nike team rally and become a strong force once again. And that drive pushed the Nike brand forward. As painful as the attack from their overseas partner was, facing off against domestic competitors was even more intense. Honestly, if Nike weren't fighters, they would have been wiped out of the market a long time ago. But that's not the case. Nike fought hard and gave it everything they had. So today, let's dive into episode 2 together. The battlefield of just do it, that's just how Nike does things. Support Nike EP2, the Just Do It Battlefield by Chalksai Money Water through this QR code. Or if you want to support Sai's channel, it's super easy. Just hit like, share, and drop a comment to chat with us. But what I'd really love most is if you'd subscribe. So if I post a new video, we can catch up again. Thank you so much. Now, continuing from the events in part 1, Phil here is the founder of Nike, which actually wasn't called Nike at first. It was called Blue Ribbon Sports. He didn't bring Onitsuka shoes from Japan to sell in the US, and they sold like crazy. Business was booming. At that point, continuing from part 1, Phil still didn't know whether Onitsuka had any plans to betray him or not. But since sales were going so well, he thought, hey, maybe I should go ask to extend the contract with Onitsuka. Because at first, Phil, Blue Ribbon, had made a contract to be the exclusive distributor. Onitsuka in the United States on the East Coast, but sales were so good that he asked if he could expand the contract. Like, can I sell throughout the entire United States? At first, when Onitsuka heard this request, they said no, because they thought Blue Ribbon was too small and maybe not stable enough. They wanted a bigger, more stable distributor, like one that had an office on the East Coast. Phil heard Dad. Hey! Yeah, just the East Side office, right? Of course there is. But actually, there isn't. So Onitsuka was like, oh, you have an office on the East Side? Okay, then let Blue Ribbon be the distributor for the whole country. Onitsuka believed it, even though, honestly, what Phil told Onitsuka was his second big lie. The first time was when he lied about having Blue Ribbon Sports, which didn't really exist. And this time, it was the same thing. Phil lied to Onitsuka again. This is the East Side office, but in reality, it didn't exist at all. But the thing is, Onitsuka believed it, and Phil ended up signing an exclusive distributor contract for Onitsuka shoes across the entire United States. At that point, Phil ordered another 20,000 pairs of Onitsuka shoes to sell. Onitsuka said, okay, let's do it. Where should we ship the shoes? To the East Side office of Blue Ribbon Sports, right? But like I said, that office didn't exist. So what Phil had to do was, the most urgent thing was to set up an office. But since there wasn't one, and setting up an office takes money, right? So Phil started raising funds. Whether it was handing out flyers or trying to convince investors to put their money into Blue Ribbon Sports, he told them, we're a really fast-growing company. Now we're setting up an office. But it turned out that not a single investor wanted to put money into Blue Ribbon Sports. No one trusted them at all. Honestly, Phil felt pretty embarrassed about it. No investors were willing to invest any of their capital, but luckily the parents of one of Blue Ribbon Sports' very first employees were fully aware that Phil desperately needed cash to invest, and he needed it urgently. So they said, well, we'll put in $8,000. Honestly, Phil felt extremely hesitant about accepting that money because he knew that $8,000 from this couple was the absolute entirety of their life savings. Phil also knew that doing business was risky, and if it failed, the money was gone. Phil felt uneasy. But honestly, despite Phil's belief in his business, nobody else did. Banks refused him a loan, so Phil had to use that $8,000 to set up the office. And the next step was to expand the business. Now that there was an office and 20,000 sample pairs of shoes, it was time to start selling. Like I mentioned back in the first episode, Phil's shoes were already selling really well. That led to the next problem, which you could call a happy problem, because as the business grew, everything else grew too. The storefront expanded, the staff increased, everything just kept growing. And that led to the fixed costs grew too. So the way to solve this problem was the only real solution was that Few had to sell more shoes. So Few made a request to Onitsuka in Japan, asking if they could send more shoes for us to sell. The request was made, saying that our sales were really good and we didn't have enough stock. Could they send us more? But Onitsuka didn't ramp up production to send us more shoes. They just sent the same amount as before. Not less, but not more either. So no matter how hard Few tried to push Onitsuka, we'd only get the same amount as always. Japan just didn't care, until later Few found out that Onitsuka was selling really well in Japan too. So Onitsuka chose to prioritize selling to their Japanese customers first, and only then would they send the leftovers to America. Few wasn't too happy about that. That's when Few started to wonder, like, hey, we're selling really well here. Honestly, Onitsuka should appreciate Blue Ribbon Sports and send us more stock. Why aren't they sending us more? What exactly is happening over there? At that time, Few actually had statistics in hand showing that a staggering 70% of runners in the United States were wearing Onitsuka Blue Ribbon shoes sold in the US. Then, Few stumbled upon some very revealing evidence, a detailed list of Onitsuka shoe distributors across the United States. They weren't official distributors yet, but negotiations were underway. The list was found in the briefcase of a representative from Onitsuka named Kitami. And it wasn't just a list of 18 companies, there was also a schedule of appointments. As soon as Fio saw this, he was furious. This was clear as day. Onitsuka was looking for new distributors in the United States to replace Blue Ribbon Sports. When Phil found out, he was absolutely livid, so they called a meeting. So a meeting was held. Honestly, Phil himself was worried too. He wondered, hey, is Onitsuka not going to renew the contract? Are they looking for someone else to sell their shoes? Because his business had grown and become successful up to that point thanks to selling Onitsuka shoes. If Onitsuka didn't renew the contract with Phil, he'd be really anxious too. So what did Onitsuka say to Phil that day? There's only one way for Onitsuka to renew the contract with Phil Knight. Sell Blue Ribbon Sports to Onitsuka. 51%. Would you agree to that? When Phil heard that, honestly, anyone would freak out. If it were me, I'd freak out too. But did Phil freak out? I don't know. I'm just saying, if it were me, I'd definitely freak out. Like, hey, we've been business partners all this time, and now you suddenly want to take over the company? More than half at that. Who would agree to that? Of course Phil refused. He wouldn't sell. And Phil was already thinking that day, the only way, if Onitsuka wouldn't renew the contract, that means from now on we'll have to become competitors, right? The only way for us to survive is to go to war. You could say that meeting ended in total chaos. Everyone was furious. And the very first thing Phil and Bowerman did after the meeting was they had to calm themselves down. Deep breaths in and out. They really needed to get a grip. The two of them talked and said, hey, losing Onitsuka can't be the end of the world, right? This can't be the end of the world. Losing Onitsuka means we have to become even greater than before. Yeah, don't forget that the best-selling design at that time, Cortez, was actually designed by Bowerman himself. That's right, Bowerman designed it himself. So what does that mean? It means Blue Ribbon Sports designed, produced and distributed everything themselves. All right, everyone, so the vibe was like, let's just do it. Let's stop selling for Onitsuka, and from now on, we'll design, produce, and distribute everything ourselves. That was the feeling. And then one of the employees suddenly spoke up and said, but boss, we need to come up with a new brand name. What should we call it? So the vibe was like, what should we call it? Then one of the employees spoke up, Nike, boss. So I asked, what does Nike mean again? Nike is the name of the Greek goddess of victory. Oh, right, I remember now. I saw something about that when I traveled to Greece once. But, like, Nike? To be honest, I didn't really like it that much. But then another employee jumped in and said, "Boss, we don't have time. There's no time to think about it. The work needs to get done, and the brand name has to be decided now." So I was like, all right, Nike it is. We'll go with Nike. Then I asked, what about the logo? What should we do for the logo? An employee said, "Here's the thing. I know a student who's really good at designing logos. I'll have them design it for us." So we went to the student, and just like that, they whipped up this logo right here. That Swoosh logo became incredibly famous. And, you know, when that student designed the Swoosh logo, it only cost $35. No one could have guessed that the Swoosh would become the logo of a world-famous brand. The student didn't know either, so they just charged that much. Now that we had the brand and the logo, the next thing we needed to do was find a manufacturer who could deliver high quality at a low, affordable price. And the next thing we had to do was this. When a major crisis unexpectedly hits, it is inevitable that everyone loses their motivation for sure. The primary challenge Phil faced was to effectively bring back the team's morale during those incredibly difficult and challenging times. During that crisis, Phil announced to all the employees that the partnership between us, Blue Ribbon, and Onitsuka was officially over. From now on, we would be producing a new brand called Nike. Nobody knew what Nike was. People were like, "Nike? What's that?" And I told them we don't have much time, which means there's no room for mistakes. Right after I finished speaking, I looked into the eyes of the employees who were listening, and I have to say, the look in the employees' eyes was just so downcast, so discouraged, so hopeless. It was as if ending the contract with Onitsuka was also the end of Blue Ribbon Sports. And in that split second, Phil realized he had to turn his words around to change the situation. So he said, "This is the moment we've all been waiting for, everyone. We don't have to sell someone else's brand anymore. Onitsuka has been holding us back for years, and their shipments were always late. This crisis is actually going to set us free, and we're going to be bigger than ever." As soon as he finished speaking, the room erupted in applause. After that, a sense of relief returned and surrounded Blue Ribbon Sports, the company that would become Nike once again that day. Do you know what this tells us? It tells us that when an organization is facing a crisis and has to fight through it, it can't win if we can't inspire our employees to have the morale to keep fighting. On that day, Phil succeeded in passing this test with flying colors. He was able to restore morale among the employees once again, turning a discouraged team back into a strong force that could build the Nike brand and take it out to compete in the market. After that, another thing Phil changed was eliminating his previous weaknesses. The main and most significant weakness of Blue Ribbon Sports before was being tied to a single manufacturer, Onitsuka. What Phil did to solve this problem was to build a network of manufacturers. And most importantly, he carefully chose the manufacturers, who gave him the authority to have full control over the production process. We finished talking about managing the business to start a new brand, which became Nike, but the old issue isn't over yet. It can't be over. Since Phil left, Onitsuka was out too. Onitsuka actually sued Blue Ribbon Sports, accusing them of starting a new brand, which is Nike. This violated the contract that stated Blue Ribbon Sports would only distribute Tiger shoes. So Phil countersued Onitsuka, claiming they were trying to breach the contract, which made Blue Ribbon Sports the exclusive distributor in the United States. But fighting it out wouldn't have gotten anyone anywhere. Both sides would have just ended up losing. So they decided to settle and go their separate ways. That's why in 1971, Blue Ribbon Sports officially became Nike. And by that point, the company's sales had already surpassed $1 million. From then on, Nike's growth skyrocketed. As they continued to expand, they became the most famous sports brand we all know today. Wow. If the story ended here, it would be a happy ending. But it's not a happy ending, is it? So I have to keep telling the story. Are you still with me? If you think getting attacked by a partner you grew up with is painful, believe me, getting attacked by competitors from your own country is even more intense. In 1972, Nike made a big splash at the Olympics, which brought them global attention. That year, Nike's revenue reached $14 million. Then, in 1976, their revenue doubled to $28 million in just 1 year. In 1977, Nike was growing incredibly fast. Phil was opening Nike factories all over the world. At that time, Nike was really, truly booming. Not only did they capture a major share of the sports shoe market, but they also became a global fashion statement. Rapid growth. Growing so fast it made people jealous. That's right. And just when it seemed like everything was going well, the same problem that few had faced before, Happy encountered again. Few was growing so fast that everything else had to expand along with it. Whether it was the factory, the storefront, or the staff, everything needed more. And now, the same old problem. The fixed costs had gotten even bigger. For small businesses, the best way to solve this is to sell more. But by that point, Nike wasn't small anymore. There was another way to solve this problem, which is borrowing. Because if you borrow money and you know you'll be able to generate enough income to cover the interest, then go ahead and borrow. It's probably fine. At that time, Phil also expected that Nike would be able to do it, so he borrowed. You could say that Nike invested every single baht in Satang, including taking out loans, in order to expand Nike's business and make it bigger. At that point, I have to say, Nike's cash flow wasn't all that great. They were caught in the fixed cost trap by borrowing money, and this was during a period of expansion. There was a moment when Phil thought about raising funds in the stock market, planning to go public with an IPO. But then, out of the blue, before he even got to do the IPO, I received a letter from the US Customs Service, kind of like the IRS, at my house, saying that I owed the US Customs Service $25 million. When I first opened the letter, I thought to myself, oh my gosh, this must be a mistake, right? I figured it had to be an error. Like, how could I possibly owe the government that much money? And honestly, at that moment, if I really had to pay $25 million, in the US, I'd be totally ruined. So I thought, okay, let me call and check if this letter was a mistake. So I called the US Customs Service. After calling them 23 times, I found out that it was real. It wasn't a mistake. So do you know how that $25 million bill even happened? Phil checked and found out that someone had reported him to the customs officials, asking them to send the bill to Phil. And the people who reported him were actually Nike's competitors in the shoe business at the time. They saw how fast Nike was growing. So fast, it made them jealous. So fast, it became a threat to their brands. So they banded together and went to Washington to report to the customs officials, asking them to collect the money from Phil by enforcing something called the American Sealing Price, or ASP. Now, ASP is a rule that's been around since way back, since after the Great Depression. It says that anyone who imports shoes from abroad that look similar to shoes already being sold in the United States has to pay an import tax of 20% of the competitor's selling price. This was meant to prevent people from bringing in foreign goods to compete with American-made products. And Nike didn't manufacture in the US. They manufactured shoes in other countries, Japan, China, and set up factories all over the world. So they imported the shoes and sold them under the Nike brand in the United States. That's right, Nike imported shoes to sell in the US. And if the American selling price rule was strictly enforced, Nike would have to pay an extra $6 for every single pair of shoes. That's what Nike imported to sell. What's even worse than paying a huge tax bill is having to pay back taxes. And yes, this amount was for the previous 3 years after Nike had already produced the shoes, which means Nike didn't know beforehand that they'd have to pay. Honestly, how could they not know? But anyway, they didn't have the money to pay that sum. And even though they didn't have the money, Phil knew one thing for sure. If they had to pay that $25 million today, Nike would be finished. So the only thing Phil could do was just do it. Fight. Seeing this, now I understand why when Phil was a kid, he wanted to be a runner but didn't become one. Because honestly, Phil is a real fighter. He fights to the end. At that time, when Phil found out he had to pay $25 million and knew he couldn't afford it, if he paid, the company would go under. What he did was hire the best lawyer he could find and went to court to fight it out with the customs office, and also with the brands that had filed the complaint. He fought for a full 3 years. The main brands that filed the complaint with customs were, for example, Converse and Keds. One of the strategies Nike used to win this battle was to build a team, to gather allies, kind of like hashtag Team Nike. But back then, building a team didn't just mean assembling staff or employees within the organization. Nike's approach was to rally people's spirits, whether they were customers or outsiders. What Nike did was create commercials that showed what Nike was up against, what they had been through, and what they were fighting for. The goal was to make people feel involved and excited about what Nike was experiencing, and to get people to side with Nike. And it actually worked. As the court case dragged on over the years, everyone started to realize what strategies Nike was using in this fight. So eventually, they reached a settlement. From the original $25 million, the amount was reduced to $9 million. Honestly, Phil still thought that $9 million was a lot, but he agreed to pay because by that point, they had been fighting for 3 years. Dragging things out for 3 years was actually one of Nike's strategies as well. Because during those 3 years that Nike refused to pay the $25 million, they were able to do business and generate $440 million in revenue. So even though the remaining amount of $9 million still felt like a lot to Phil, he tried to pay it because after making $440 million, paying $9 million wasn't really going to hurt him that much. He just wanted to put an end to everything. Phil paid the $9 million to settle it, and once it was done, that was the end of it. After that, in 1980, Nike entered the stock market and became a public company. Going public and getting listed on the stock exchange allowed Nike to completely eliminate its cash flow problems and any issues with insufficient funds. Overcoming all these obstacles helped Nike grow tremendously and become much stronger. At that time, Phil held 46% of the company's shares. So when Nike went public, Phil instantly became super rich. And do you remember the $8,000 investment from the uncle, aunt, and the parents of a former Blue Ribbon Sports employee? They were the ones who put up the money when Phil desperately needed funds to build the office. Do you remember that? That $8,000 Phil got when he was struggling, it grew right along with the company, grew from $8,000 to $1,600,000. Phil said that was one of the things that made him really happy about running the business, because he was able to make money for the people who genuinely wanted to help him. It grew so much that Phil went and told the people who invested their money, like, hey, your money has grown this much. It completely changed the lives of those uncles and aunts. And then in 1986, Nike managed to surpass Converse, the same Converse that had sued Nike. That made Nike the biggest sports brand in the United States. And today, Nike is the largest sports brand in the world too, in terms of market cap and size. Today, Nike's company value is at $97 billion. Just a little more and it'll hit $100 billion. If we ended the story here, it would be a happy ending, right? But this video is already getting long and I can't go into much more detail. Still, Nike's stock has dropped a lot from its all-time high. Over the past 4 years, Nike stock has taken a serious hit, falling from its all-time high of $169 per share to about $65 per share now. That means in the past 5 years, Nike stock is down 71%. Clearly, something must have gone wrong somewhere. Maybe selling shoes as a source of inspiration just isn't the selling point it used to be. Or, if you want to hear more about Nike, like a deep dive into Nike's branding and what exactly went wrong, I haven't written that part yet. If you're interested, leave a comment, and after New Year's, I'll write it up and share it with you if people want to hear it. But for today, it's Christmas Eve, so I'm off to a party first. Merry Christmas! Bye for real this time!